Okay, hello everybody that is joining us from around the world today, and welcome to this IT Masters and Charles Sturt University panel on women in the IT sector, panel entitled Why is Tech Still a Boys' Club? And to help us answer that question, we've got a couple of incredible panelists, but first we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. Chat with other participants or things that you would like everybody, participants, panelists, etc., to be able to see can go in the chat section down the bottom of Zoom. If you've got direct questions that you would like to pose to our panelists, please direct those to the Q&A section. We're going to do our best to make it through as many questions as possible, but all of these panelists have an amazing wealth of experience, which means that it may not be possible to get through all of them. But again, please discuss amongst yourselves in the chat section as well. And before we begin the content of tonight, we'd like to acknowledge that we are coming to you today from a variety of places, but specifically in Australia, we're coming from the lands of the Wurundjeri people, the Berys people, and the Ngai people. We're also coming from the traditional lands of Ngai Tahu in Aotearoa, New Zealand, as well as Malaysia. So nice broad spread as well. And I'd like to acknowledge that for the Australian people coming to the panel from Australia, that those lands were never ceded, and we acknowledge the ongoing sovereignty of those Indigenous peoples and their connection to lands, waters, and culture. So to begin the panel's content tonight, we have these incredible panelists. So first, we have Dr. Rani Burchmore, who's the regional lead at Amazon Web Services Restart program. She's worked in the sector for a couple of decades, working for as illustrious list of companies as Microsoft and Dell as well. Rani, would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit about your story?
Thank you very much for that, Jack. Hi, everyone. Rani, coming to you from Singapore today. And just a little bit about me. I am an Indian by origin, Singaporean by birth, and Australian by choice. I just have been working out of Australia for the last 14 years back here in Singapore, making a full circle of where I started with. Just a little bit about my background. I was actually wanting to become a lawyer in my early days, and ended up being a little bit disillusioned by what was happening around me at the time of decision making, and decided to become an accountant. And went to college, finished my college studies as an accountant, and then realized I'm not cut out to be an accountant. It wasn't in my blood, so I decided I wanted to be in business and economics. So my career started in working in hospitality and real estate, and eventually I ended up by accident really in IT because I fell in love with what software does and how software was able to change business processes in the early 80s. So I then decided, you know what, this is what I want to do. So I fell into IT as a salesperson, never thinking that I was ever going to be in the space for as long as I have. So I was very lucky to have many good mentors as I saw my career progress from professional consulting to software, hardware, and now with AWS where I am. Now, the role that I have in AWS was a very intentional role. After working in IT in middle and senior management roles for 20 years, I decided that I wanted to use that for good, and I was going to get myself a role that will help diverse audiences get into cloud computing. And that is what I do for my day job, so I'm very lucky. And that's a little bit of my background. I've got one son who's 15 years old, so all the joys of going through teenage years, and a husband who's an educationalist, and so there's no dull moment at home for conversations. That's me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Rani. Our next panelist is Berys Amor, who is the Chief Information Officer of Ngai Tahu Holdings, which is one of Aotearoa, New Zealand's biggest Maori tribes. She's also got a background in strategy, law leadership, and information security. So, Berys, would you like to introduce yourself a little more?
Thank you, Jack. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Berys Amor tōku ingoa. Hi, everyone. My name is Berys Amor. As Jack said, I work for one of the largest Māori iwi or tribes here in New Zealand, although I spent most of my life in Melbourne, Australia. So New Zealand, or Aotearoa, is my country of birth, but when I was young, I moved over to Australia, and I returned 3 years ago in the middle of a pandemic, which was a challenge, but it was the right thing to do at that time. So I've worked in the technology industry for a really long time. I'm not going to tell you how long. It's kind of embarrassing. But I started off with a role for a legal firm as an accounts clerk, but they needed someone, this was in my early 20s, they needed someone to do the backups for their new accounting system. And my role was starting at 10:30 a.m. and finishing at 6:30 p.m. and then doing the backups at 5 o'clock when everyone left. And when you're in your early 20s, starting work at 10:30 a.m. was really attractive, I have to say. But that really started my interest in technology, just from doing the backups of the old Unix system, and it just kind of evolved from there. And I did follow a more of a technical path initially, and then in more recent times, well, probably the last 20 years, I moved into management, and I love working in the technology industry. I love being able to enable businesses and people, because that's what technology is about, right? It's about people. And I've worked for a long time in professional services and the legal industry in Australia. So when I moved back to New Zealand, the opportunity to work for the largest iwi is amazing for me. I am Māori, but I had lost that connection to my culture. That was one of the reasons of returning to Aotearoa. So I feel very, very fortunate and privileged to be able to work in a role where I am actually helping to uplift Māori, and to support their culture and identity and well-being and so forth. So that's me.
Thank you so much, Berys. Our next panelist is Jo Stewart-Rattray. No relation to me, I don't believe, but who knows? Who is the CSO at Silverchain and the Director of Technology and Security Assistance at BRM Advisory. She's also worked in the IT industry for several decades, focusing on information security and CISO in healthcare, combining IT with education and management as well. Jo, would you like to give us some more details about yourself?
Yeah, thanks very much. And if you're a Rattray, all Rattrays are related.
I'm a Stewart.
Well, we're not related. There's a whole, it's all my husband's name. None of it is mine. So that's the first thing. I actually started my working life in the music and entertainment businesses. And yes, I am married to a professional musician. So that, then I made the swap after a while. I mean, that was fun. It was great fun. And I used to do logistics for tours. So, it was pretty cool. And the music business is full of technology. So I think that's where my interest was spiked a little bit. And so I ended up by swapping to tech, and I was in infrastructure to begin with. So I was the person crawling around in data centers to find out why something wasn't working. And, awful when you get to the end of the patch panel and you find that it's been chewed up by a rat. Anyway, that's a whole other story, right? So, and then I worked my way through the ranks and became a CIO in the critical infrastructure space, which was pretty cool, I have to tell you, because we were allowed so many system minutes outage a year, not very many at all. And so I had a team of electrical engineers reporting to me. And what do I know about electrical engineering? Absolutely zip. But it was because they were running the operational control and SCADA systems. And I was also responsible for business IT. And I was one of the first CIOs in Australia to be responsible for both. So it was a fairly big role for your first CIO role, but incredibly exciting. But I also got really excited by security when we started to look at a proof of concept for a national security operations centre for the national grid. So I was then tapped on the shoulder And it was an opportunity that I thought I couldn't really say no to. So I moved across. Some people say I went to the dark side. I like to say I saw the light and went to security. And so, you know, I was in professional services for a while in security, and I still am, but I'm also currently on contract to Silverchain Group, where I'm their Chief Security Officer. And I've done a number of CIO roles over the years because I like to second myself out from professional services and sit within businesses to understand what my clients actually face on a day-to-day basis. So I'm with Silverchain 4 days a week, and consulting 1 day a week, and anybody in professional services means that that's a 7-day-a-week job. But that's who I am. I have 2 speeds, absolute full bore and complete stop, on my back snoring on the sofa by the fire. That's me.
Well, Jo, I mean, we might be related, honestly. That sounds probably very relatable to a large number of women that work in this space, particularly. And we also have our final panelist is Sarah McCullough, who is the CIO of Essential Energy. She joined that a few years ago and then assumed the CIO role in 2020. She's got a decent number of years also of experience in the industry. And has worked at ASX top 50 companies and is also our distinguished alumnus of IT Masters at CSU as well, with a graduate certificate in management in IT and an MBA in computing. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Jack. And I'm honoured to be on the panel with such esteemed panellists here today, and I welcome the opportunity to talk about this very important topic, which is women in IT, and something that I'm very passionate about. As Jack said, I went the long way to get into IT in my career, and I was lucky enough to further my education with IT Masters at night school and via correspondence, while I had a day job, which was for a short time teaching scuba diving in Sydney Harbour, when I realised that winter is really cold in Sydney and I wasn't going to be able to do that for another season. So I better go and get a real job. And my real job was unpacking computers at the airport, which really helped foster my career and really expand that to ultimately landed a management job in IT for that logistics company. So I can talk a little bit more about the long way to get there, Jack, when we go through the panel. But thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It is an absolutely wonderful panel. I think there's a really great wealth of experience in a whole variety of different kind of angles as well that we've got here. So I suppose without further ado, we should jump into some questions, because I think that we may end up being a little pressed for time because there's such an excellent amount of experience and knowledge, everybody. So let's start off with a question which could be answered by any of you, but feel free to jump in or put your hand up and have a little discussion about it. The question is that overcoming setbacks and challenges is a part of every career journey. Can you share some stories or examples briefly of how you've navigated obstacles in your own career and emerged stronger? Who would like to take this one?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
When I first really started in a CIO role, and I would attend roundtables, I'd get invited to roundtables or dinners, and I'd be the only female, maybe one of 2, but more than often than not, I would be the only female. And I didn't have a voice. I was totally intimidated and presumed that everyone around the table, all the men around the table, knew more than I did. But I am into setting myself goals and challenges. And one of them I set was I wanted to be the first person to make a comment and the first person to ask a question. And I would, even go into meetings or roundtables with something in mind. And I did start to do that. And then I felt more comfortable with it. And so I think that I actually flipped it. And I think that we got to a position where I was actually intimidating to all the other men in the room, because I put my opinion out there and I put questions out there that in fact nobody knew the answer to. So that's my little tip on what I did. I set myself personal challenges and goals.
Excellent. And I think that, speaks to a theme that I imagine will possibly emerge throughout the webinar tonight, of having to set yourself personal challenges to overcome systemic obstacles, like being the only woman in the room. Who would like any further input on this question? Joe?
That's my life, being the only woman in the room. I've sat on a number of, in fact, I hate to say it, it's now many boards over many years, and many of them international boards. And so I'm used to being either the only woman in the room or one of a very small number of women in the room. And I think you get to a point, sadly, where it's no longer abnormal or different. It's just how it is. And I absolutely encourage women to step up and stand alongside of us, because we really want you there. We really want you. I know it's hard. It's incredibly hard sometimes, but you have people like us who will support you and will mentor you. So please, we want more lipstick in the boardroom, and that's a fact. I love lipstick. Not all women do, but I love lipstick. So more lipstick in the boardroom, ladies.
Jack, I might just add to that if I can. Berys and Joe, I don't bring any lipstick to the boardroom, sadly, but I'm fortunate enough that I quite often in meetings am one of a number of females within my own organisation, not so much within the industry. And just a shout out to two of my colleagues who I can see on the call tonight, Alison and Sarah. Thank you for joining. But we're really lucky in the organisation I work at that we do have other female executives and is well represented. And just to the point on for other people on the call, that really comes down to finding a really positive sponsor, to someone who sponsors females into those sort of positions. And there's normally one in every industry, organisation and place. So that's been a real, to answer the question in a positive way, that's been a real enabler for me in my career when there's been setbacks. It has been excellent.
Excellent.
I will also jump on the bandwagon to say some things. Then I will just say that I remember the first challenge of actually going into being brought into for a role in a consulting firm, not really realizing what I was in for. I remember the first week there was a complete restructure in the organization. Not just within the organization, but in the customers and partners that I was brought in to take care of. I remember this very precisely. I won't say which company. The project on the second day I was given was called Project Dog Bucket. And I'm like, what the hell is this, man? And what it was we had 600 partners in Asia Pacific, and my job was to reduce to 200 of them. And all those people who don't get into the 200 were ended up in the dog bucket. So, it was the first time I realized big corporations and especially foreign international companies, how they used to operate. It was very hardcore. And one of the things that, I was a bit bamboozled, if that is a word, thinking, what the hell have I got myself into? But then what I learned is that to challenge myself, I was going to take up this challenge, and I'm going to really understand all of my partners and customers that I have to go and say, you don't have business with us anymore, to understand what it means for them and what was, how to provide them with other opportunities and to part ways properly. And that allowed me to have that more, moral thinking and the passion to make sure we never burn bridges, allowed me to really dig deep and find ways and learn about the industry really deep. Now, after 3 months of having done the project, on hindsight, I think a lot of my learning of how to build partner ecosystems, how to manage them, profitability, and what it means for them not being there was because I didn't let it phase me. So I think from there, it was I got the confidence, and I can actually do anything. If I can get, in my first conversation to 400 plus people, tell them we don't want to do your business anymore and have all of that, I could do anything. So it gave me a lot of confidence. So I think my takeaway with any career or any job is there's always They say when you look at a door, it's a choice. You either go through the door, but just for sake, find out where the windows and all the other exits are, and be clear when you go through the door what you are doing, and then you won't be afraid of all the different possibilities that happens. But that has stuck with me for the rest of my journey.
Excellent. I think that's actually a really great way to segue into our next question, especially with the mention of things like confidence and having to understand that, you can do absolutely anything. The next question, I'd like Sarah to start with answering this, but other panelists would love your input as well. Talking about the idea of imposter syndrome, which is a very common challenge for a lot of women. In case anyone's unfamiliar with the term, it's essentially the phenomenon which particularly women, but also disproportionately people that belong to other kinds of like minorities in various spaces as well, feel that they are less deserving of being in the position that they are occupying. And it is definitely a gendered phenomenon. Women apply for jobs when they know that they meet 100% of the KPIs and things, and men apply for the jobs when they know that they have potential and things. So how, Sarah, do you believe that individuals can overcome that kind of imposter syndrome and build that confidence in their abilities? And have you experienced some of that yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I think imposter syndrome is real. And it's really important, just like menopause and everything else that happens in a woman's life. And it feels strange to be talking about menopause before the halfway point of this conversation, but I think it's important, is discussed. And as Jack mentioned there, I think imposter syndrome does occur more frequently in females. And particularly when we did the survey on what part of your career are you at, I think it strikes at all levels. So it's as prominent when you're starting out as, if you're in an executive role, or Jo mentioned she works on a significant number of boards. I have no solid answers, so I'll just give you a little bit about what I've heard, and I welcome everyone else to contribute. But I think it's important that we talk about it and recognise it. And I think it's important you have a support person in your work or organisation or your personal life that you can say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Can you sense check me on? Is this my bad self talking my good self out of it? Or am I really, do I need to do more work here? I also think it's really important that women are too critical on themselves, and we acknowledge that and we celebrate when things do go well. I know that sometimes it's really hard to stop and go, hold on, I did a great job there, or I nailed that, or, even celebrating with someone else. Like Rani, you answered that first question really well, or, Berys did a great job on whatever it was. Being able to publicly acknowledge and appreciate each other, particularly as females, is really important. The other thing is, and I saw a little bit in the chat, but that need to compare where am I up to with where is someone else and what's their journey. And I've got young kids. I heard some people on the call who have kids who are in the teenage years, and others might be looking after their parents or moving home for different reasons. And everyone's at a different stage in their career and life and made different choices. So I think if you're comparing yourself to others, you'll often find that you're criticising your choices. So that's sometimes not helpful. And the other thing I'd say is that women are generally pretty hard taskmasters on ourselves. So sometimes you've got to, when you stop and celebrating, acknowledge what is going well, and also acknowledge if your expectations are a little bit high compared to how other people might assess themselves against that. I just welcome everyone else to contribute, but certainly imposter syndrome is alive and well. It's something that needs to be tamed and kept in check. And as Jack mentioned at the start, I think it occurs all times of your life and all levels of your career. And certainly females are not the only to get it, but we do disproportionately.
Absolutely agree, Sarah. I got it when I started this role here at Ngai Tahu. I'd worked in professional services in the legal industry for so long, and I joined an organisation that had a diverse number of businesses like farming, forestry, seafood, second biggest tourist operator in New Zealand, plus all the social side that puts that revenue back into the wellbeing of the tribe. And I absolutely went through that and went, this is it. This is the job where they're going to find out that I actually can't do anything they think I can. And I leaned into my network of women, and I also, I was okay to be really vulnerable and to say out loud that I felt that overwhelmed by this industry that I'd moved into, and that support wraps itself around you. And you know what, it can be grounding as well. You have to try and find that positive part of it, but you are right, it never goes away.
Look at presenting on a panel with you legends. That's a imposter syndrome plus.
But I mean, that's a point, isn't it? We've all had it. I'm sure, like it's something that you're right, Sarah. It doesn't go away. And Berys, I that feeling of God, they're going to find me out is a real thing as well. I can tell a little story. As a 7-year-old child living in the bush, I'd always had this dream after seeing an old Audrey Hepburn movie with my dad, where she was working at the UN, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to go to the UN, and I wanted to make a difference. This is a kid living in a one-horse town. Never going to happen. Anyway, many years go by, and just a few years ago, I was the volunteer founder of a large women's network across the world called She Leads Tech, and I was hosting a lunch in Canberra, and it was by invitation, there were some fairly high flyers there. And so I just said, you know, I'd really like us to get our feet under the table with UN Women, and I'd really like to meet the ambassador for women and girls, because I think we could really have a great conversation. And this woman came up to me, it turned out she was from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and she said to me, I'm going to send you a link to an opportunity that you must promise me you put your hat in the ring for. Oh, thanks, Sandra. That's lovely. Okay, so I raced off to got the aircraft, got home, stood up, because I guess I am one of those people who have to stand up and stretch myself after I've been on a plane. And I just turned on my phone, and there's the ding. I have a look, and there's this link. So I click the link. I'm in security, and I clicked a link. Anyway, I clicked the link, and I went, and I'm sure I said it out loud. I went, I can't do that. They want me. What? And what was it? It was an opportunity to put myself forward to be part of the official Australian delegation to the 62nd Commission on the Status of Women at UNHQ in New York. And I did all the things that I tell women that I mentor not to do. I self-doubted, right? I was having this conversation with myself, and I'm sure the man in front of me turned around because I was talking out loud. And I said, I can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. No, I can't. But similarly, I phoned a friend the next morning, one of my US colleagues, and said, look, this has happened. Do you think I should actually put myself forward? And she said, of course, hell yeah, of course you should. And so I did, and held my breath thinking, that's it, they're going to find me out. I'm never going to get a gig with this. I found myself walking through the portals of the General Assembly on the first day of CSW 62 as technical advisor to the Australian official delegation. So had I let imposter syndrome overrule me, I would never have had that opportunity to fulfill the dream of a 7-year-old kid from the bush.
That's so wonderful. And I think really, points to a lot of the value in sharing these kinds of stories as well, to encourage other women and other people from marginalized backgrounds to enter these kinds of things, which brings us a little bit more towards talking about pipelines into the industry and into leadership and management type roles as well. It's specifically in education, because IT Masters is an educational institution. So I'd like to ask Rani, in IT education, there's about 4-to-1 ratio of men to women in Australia, but it's broadly, similar around the world. So what are the kind of barriers that you can identify that prevent women from pursuing these studies? And also, is there a way that you believe that we can encourage more women to enter the field to build that strong pipeline and those development opportunities as well into education and further into the career as well?
Definitely. Thanks for the question. Oh my God, so inspiring listening to all of these ladies on the panel. Thank you for making me excited. Okay, so although the tech industry has seen significant strides globally, women are still underrepresented in leadership roles, like you mentioned, Jack. to your point, women hold only 26.7% of tech-related roles, 25% of leadership positions in tech, and only 14% of software engineering positions. The gender gap in IT fields persists, and the reasons they persist is because of some ingrained factors. And there are, as I was saying earlier to our colleagues, that you could write a book about it. So I'm just going to try and, pick the first 4 barriers that I've seen time and time again. First is, I think, historical bias and stereotypes. Since the inception of computing and technology-related fields, they have been predominantly male-dominated. And this historical bias has been shaped by societal perceptions, associating traits like logic and technical proficiency to masculinity, thus discouraging women from pursuing careers in tech. These biases permeates, right, every aspect of the career journey, from recruitment to performance evaluation to salary negotiations, mentoring, career development, and most of all, within us, the female gender, quite often. So the lack of representation and role models, because there is such a small percentage of the total women in those roles, we also see women are significantly underrepresented in high-profile positions within the tech industry. When you talk about data, you see more and more of them, like, the esteemed panelists here, but there's still a vast disparity. The lack of representation then makes it challenging for girls and women to envision themselves succeeding in tech careers and finding mentors to guide them. The third one I will say is what we talk about pipeline. Actually, the misconception that there is a shortage of qualified women entering the tech pipeline perpetuates the underrepresentation. In reality, a Harvard study showed across 17 developed markets that 43% of entry-level tech roles are actually being taken on by women. It is the leadership, they're just not funneling through to the top. And the fourth one, which perpetuates this situation, is even when women enter the tech industry, they often encounter obstacles in advancing their careers, like we talked about earlier. And issues such as this limits advancement opportunities, pay disparities, non-conducive work environments, work culture, and high attrition rates of women actually leaving tech. So building a strong pipeline and encouraging more women to enter the tech field and pursue development opportunities requires like a multifaceted approach, right? And I will say at a high level, early education and exposure, we are seeing quite a lot of girls in tech and girls coding programs that are coming up. We need to start by promoting that to girls from any age, and getting rid of some of that biases by having the role models and mentors, increase visibility of women in tech by showcasing not just successful female role models, but like what IT Masters is doing today, to talk about what it takes, and the experiences. Community engagement and support, I think, is another very important component. Organized meetups, networking events, and conferences. And I talked about addressing the unconscious bias, offer training and education. For example, the job that I do today is about stimulating women returning to work to get tech, to be skilled to do roles in entry-level or mid-level role in the tech industry. So there's many programs like that, and they're good. There are more and more coming up, but we need to take them on board and use them as resources. Flexible work arrangements is another thing. I know there's a lot of conversation everywhere in the region where we are talking about what companies need to do to ensure that they create an inclusive work environment and support work-life balance. But one thing I want to say there is that work-life balance on its own is not going to come until we address some of the gender roles at home. Because realistically, to build a career, you need the time and the energy and the mind space. And until like gender roles at home becomes a little bit more, have parity, it is also very difficult for women to, to achieve that when they don't have the time and they're always tired. Workplace culture and partnerships and collaborations with the initiatives and taking on quite a lot of the internship, apprenticeships, job placement opportunities. and in going after that, as opportunities, not only to find out whether that is what you want to do, but also see where your skill sets are. One of the things that I'll say in my summation is that a lot of the time we women underestimate our skills and capabilities, like the esteemed panel talked about. And I think we need to have a little bit of a benchmark, right? We need to sort of level set that any role in tech is a multifaceted role that requires the same skill sets that women are much better at than the roles that we feel that we are not very good at. So I think we need to have that bias mind change across, and it's not one solution that is going to fix it. Sorry, I'm so passionate about this topic. When I hear it, I go off, because we've got a responsibility as the gender, as Berys and Joe and Sarah said, to actually disperse some of these biases about what our capability as women are.
Absolutely. I think that was an absolutely fantastic answer, and actually leads extremely well into another one of our questions. You talked about the kind of division of domestic labor that is still assumed a lot outside of the workplace. And, people are assumed within the workplace to be doing a huge amount more of that domestic labor when they're women outside of work, even when that is not the case, or even if, somebody is not actually in a heterosexual relationship. And that assumption itself can be quite a barrier for a lot of women in a lot of fields. So I'd like to ask Joe specifically, but also would love to hear from others as well afterwards, how you can navigate some of those challenges, and if you've got any strategies that you found effective to address that assumption of an unfair division of domestic duties and the kind of roles that we take on as women outside of the workplace. And do you have any advice for women that are kind of dealing with that at the moment?
That's a big question. Now, I will just say that fresh back from the UN again, I was interested to note that globally, it's said that women spend 2.8 hours every day in unpaid care or domestic or garden type labour than their partners, and that doesn't matter whether, and we know that men are specifically called out here, but by the same token, often we see people in same-sex relationships having exactly the same problem, where one partner is doing all the work and the other one is not. So it is a hard journey. But there are other aspects to this that we have to consider as well. Sometimes women are doing that because they might be caring for an ill relative. They might have a partner who's ill or a child who's ill. So but they still have to work, because they have to earn the daily bread to put on the table to pay the rent or the mortgage and the school fees, or for books or whatever. So, sometimes we need to, it's horses for courses. Each person is going to have her own story to tell in this space. But, I know that I've been in a situation previously where I did have somebody who was unwell, and so it might be an unwell parent, by the way. I was getting up very early in the morning, doing all of the jobs that needed to be done, watering, gardening, washing, cooking a bunch of meals, all that sort of stuff, and then going off to work. And that was the way I dealt with it. I dealt with the issues that were going on in my life, and it actually put a different perspective on it for me. But I suddenly realised after it had happened that there are women who have to deal with this every single day of their working lives. And for them, I take my hat off, because I am just in awe of what some women do, particularly women with kids. I have never had children. I've never been grown up enough. And when I was grown up enough, I was a grandmother. That's how I felt. It was like too late. So I really do take my hat off to women who can do that as well, because they are faced with a whole bunch of challenges that I never was. I think you will find your own journey through this, but if you have support of friends, relatives, partners to help you through those issues, then rely on them, lean on them, You know, I think one of the, I think it was Rani said, you know, lean in on your network, or lean in on your group of friends as well. I have an amazing group of female friends that I call it the gathering of the witches. But we have this synergy that I know I can ring any one of those women at any time if I'm beginning to feel overwhelmed at that work-life balance stuff, because we are not very good at work-life balance. As I said, I'm stop or, you know, complete stop or complete full on. So I have had to try and learn to slow myself down. So you need to put barriers. I know I'm going on for too long, ladies. I apologize. You need to put barriers around yourself as well. How many nights a week am I prepared to work after hours? What do my work hours look like? Am I also prepared to do extracurricular stuff? If so, how many nights a week am I prepared, or nights a month am I prepared to do that? So you have to do that kind of risk assessment on yourself as well.
Absolutely. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to add to this question as well? I know it's an extremely large question to try and distill.
Yeah, maybe I'll just give a very quick experience. So I said earlier in my introduction that I went from mid-career to senior leadership roles about 15, 20 years ago. And I wanted to just give that as an example. I had just given birth to my son. I'm an older mother. And I was just home from having given birth, and my company called me up and said, "Hey, Rani, the managing director resigned, and you are second in charge. Are you going to be able to take it?" Now, this person who called me knew that I had just come back from maternity leave, right? So all of these things of prioritizing, and it's a very emotional time with a new baby. And I will tell you, I made the decision to take the role because I was sitting in front of my husband, who completely and utterly supported me to be able to make that jump, because I don't know when the next opportunity will come. So we co-parented, you know, for the whole time of my maternity, what would have been my maternity leave, and I was working. And I think that goes to talk about the support network that, you know, Joe was just talking about. You need to find and you need to talk, and you don't say no because you think that's what everyone would expect you to do. But if you want to do it, find the solution and talk to and build that community to support you. And we, both of us, have never regretted that decision that I made because it was co-parenting, and because I was away for quite a bit of the time in the second 6 months of my child's growth. But it wasn't that I was totally not there, but I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for my partner.
I just want to quickly add, we've talked a lot about leaning on our support teams and on our groups. I just want to highlight the importance of networking. I think guys are pretty good at networking. Women are not so good. Get that network, get out there to events and go and speak to other women if you're uncomfortable about approaching men. And, when I moved back to New Zealand nearly 3 years ago, I didn't know anyone here. I'd lived in Australia for so long, and I had to build a new network here in a fairly small city. And I'm thrilled to say I've got a fantastic network around me. There's a couple of questions in Q&A. Your network, you can find mentors through that network, and you can find board roles through that network. I had a advisory board role in Melbourne. That was through my network. It was an introduction through my network. I'm on a governance board for an organisation that promotes Māori and Indigenous people into Digitech, and that was through my new network here. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that those networks don't necessarily have to be specifically within the company within which you work, because there may not be other women or women more senior than you within that company. But if you can kind of create that kind of cross-organizational network of women to support each other, even if you're not able to directly give each other a leg up, I think that really, really applies as well. And I think that is, it was touched on a little bit in this question about division of labor, but I also wanted to ask you, Berys, if there's anything, because, we talk about being able to balance your work and your life. But a lot of the time, particularly in industries that have been male dominated for so long, that framework for work-life balance doesn't necessarily exist in a codified way within that workplace. So what can workplaces actually do to adapt to and support to needs of women, and I mean, you know, also potentially men who want to be the primary carer for children, for example, to foster that kind of equity and inclusivity in that environment? And how do you see that developing in the future to meet various kinds of needs, rather than the needs that the current kind of workforce has been structured around, of a man going to work while his wife stays home and looks after the children, which is not necessarily the case all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we look at the physical workplace to start with, and I've been involved in Australia in a lot of, you know, office moves to brand new buildings that were, you know, purpose designed. And I would say that none of them were designed specifically with women in mind. If you don't design something with women or, you know, other minority groups in mind, then by default, it's for men. That's how it is. And I think back to some of those fantastic new state-of-the-art buildings, and they had a mother's room. Some of them even called it a mother's room. Some of them were parents' room, which also often doubled as a sick room. And that was kind of a tick box. We've designed it for women. And I mean, I look at some of the new buildings we moved into, and that my locker wasn't long enough to hang a dress. It was, you know, for suits when you hang the pants over, you know, to double over. And even from, if you move beyond the physical workplace, and you mentioned it about, wouldn't it be great to see more men taking parental leave? I mean, to see that in the workplace would be really cool. And then to see more men transitioning back into part-time or full-time work, having taken paternity leave, then it becomes the norm. Then it's not a women's problem, it's a parent's problem. Those are the kinds of things I think I would love to see in the workplace. And how does that happen? I think at the end of the day, positions of power, whether it be business, corporate, government, whatever, is still predominantly held by men, I think. And while they've been great sponsors to get us where we are now, I feel like we've kind of plateaued, and they are going to be the change makers. And I think that's a reflection on society in general. And I know you'll know what I'm talking about in Australia, in particular. So that's kind of my thoughts on the workplace. There's the physical part of it, and then there's that cultural part where it's normal for anyone to take leave to bring up a child and then to transition back into their role. Happy for other comments.
Berys, I heard a great quote, which I'll be very brief, that women are over-mentored and under-sponsored at an International Women's Day event that I went to. And I think that goes to your comments there around, have we plateaued?
Yeah.
And, you know, do we need actually a different type of sponsorship? And I think there's a question in the chat there around people who want to sponsor women into roles, but they're not finding that there's a talent pipeline to help with that.
That's an excellent question, and I want to just add one thing to that. This is fantastic, the thought process here, and that is, I'll give you an example. I used to work with this gentleman who was a father of two. He was my boss, and he was awesome. He was really awesome. And I remember being in a meeting one day with him some years ago with HR. We had two of his staff had gone on maternity leave. And he said to the HR team, "Hey, what can I do about this?" And HR came back with a response. "Well, this is a great opportunity for the other 8 people in your team to do more." And I remember my boss, hard face, said, "So what you're telling me is that I shouldn't hire women because if they go to maternity leave, I'm not going to get a placement. So you are encouraging me to hire men." And you should have seen the meeting, the whole HR, they were like stunned in silence. And that's the kind of sponsorship from men that we need, you know, and that always made me think he was to the point And he said, what you are doing is wrong. That's not the answer. The answer is two people have gone away on maternity leave. Their absence shouldn't be a cause for concern for business operations. We should have the systems in place so they can come back from maternity leave, not fearing that they're going away and their job might be done by 8 people now instead of the 2 of them doing it. So we definitely need men sponsors, and we need to find them out and seek them out.
Absolutely. I think that this is a really good opportunity. Apologies, we'll likely go slightly over, but I think that the conversation has been of such high quality that it's pretty much necessary to do so. We'll try and keep it a little bit to time, participants. But I'd like to ask, just bouncing off what's just been said, that, you know, we all acknowledge that we do need to bring men into this conversation. This can't be done exclusively by women. And in fact, expecting it to be is actually just putting more unpaid labor onto women as well. So how can we actually bring men into the conversation to address meeting all of these kind of needs and these challenges for women? What kind of benefits do you see that involvement having? How do we encourage that? And why, in your opinion, is tech still a boys' club? Which is the question that I suppose we are kind of here to answer, even though we've talked a lot about a variety of other factors that go into that. So what role do you see men having in this, and how can we kind of make sure that they do it correctly and have that conversation in an equitable and you know, positive outcome driven way? Any panelist?
I might start, if that's okay, just echoing the conversation that we've had tonight, and a call out that, you know, similar to Rani's experience, I've had amazing mentors throughout my career and amazing sponsorship, which I appreciate, and I think we've all got a duty on the call to do the same for others. Is tech still a boys' club? I think if you look at the chat tonight and the fact that we're having a whole webinar around it, it's a resounding yes. Why is that? Well, I think we've spoken about some of the challenges. Perhaps one we haven't, and I'll keep it quite brief, is that talent pipeline that we've been sort of mentioning in the chat. You know, you can't beat what you can't see is that very familiar and common phrase. So do we have enough strong you know, role models who are very visible, encouraging females to go into STEM and other type of roles? And are we making those pipelines feasible? And the other last thing I'd say is we've got a number of organisations who are taking affirmative action and really looking for opportunities to get more women into STEM type roles, tech, engineering, etc. So I think there are a great number of opportunities out there, and you've just got to be switched into them. And you know, example tonight in this short course, some of the short courses that IT Masters offer and career transition opportunities are certainly out there. And a lot of organisations are looking to attract that talent, as we are at the organisation I work for. So that's very positive. But the last anecdote I want to leave is one of the reasons that I feel my career has ended or is going in the direction it has been is because I had this amazing mentor in my organisation who was a CIO and actively encouraged females who did not have the technical qualification to put themselves into roles where they did not feel that they could do it, and backed them in. And I think that's what we need more of. Berys?
100%, Sarah. And, you know, I recently, well, not recently, it's probably a year ago now, it wasn't a leadership role, but we were looking to recruit a service delivery person. I had gone and spoken at an event called Power Up, which was to, you know, to encourage women into the tech industry. And this woman in her 40s came up to me after my presentation and said, I've worked in administrative roles and government departments for most of my life. I've done a technology course and I really want to get into the industry. Can you give me any tips? And there was something about her. And I said, give me your details. We're recruiting for a role. I had to go back to my team, that service delivery team were all male, and say to them, I've met this woman. I think she's got great life and work experience, but not in tech. I think she'll bring some really good skills, and I want you to interview her. and I knew they were pretty cynical about it because she had no technical experience. And after the interview, they came back to me and said, we loved her. We loved her personality, the vibe she gave off. They hired her, and she is the standout service delivery person now because she brings all of those other skills that the technical team didn't have. And our business love her. Everyone says, oh, if you're lucky enough to get Janine. So, yeah, I absolutely endorse that, Sarah.
I always say that this is a story for men and women together. We cannot make a difference. We cannot change the dial, move the needle on those demographics in the tech workforce without standing shoulder to shoulder with our male allies. 100%. So it is a story that we need to tell together. I've had some fantastic, I call them my shining lights, men and women who are not just mentors, but are people who are sounding boards for me sometimes, and that's what I need, not necessarily full-on mentoring. And I've found that I get a very different kind of approach from the male shining lights than from the female shining lights. I've got one who has been my board mentor for 10 years, and he will just say, what are you thinking? Really, like, he will be just totally blunt with me, where if I went to one of my female leading lights, they are far more likely to be far more gracious about it. Say the same thing, but be far more gracious. So one is far more impactful for me. So it's about your style as well. But it's only by, I saw some chat about, those men are in the minority as opposed to the majority. That's true. But I think we have a role in educating men as well, calling out bad behaviour as we see it and making changes, just changing up language. If I hear one more person say, I'm going to man the desk. No, you're not. You're going to staff the desk. Man hours, no, resource hours. It's just by making those little changes to language that you make people become more conscious. So that's my job.
I will still say it's the men's club at the moment. And it's not because men want it that way in most circumstances, some, but in not all circumstances. And I agree, Joe's point about we need to stand shoulder to shoulder to educate, to make awareness and build allies, somebody who will go to bat for you, not just give you the advice. And that is super important in finding that. And it's an ecosystem, right? As I mentioned earlier, the pipeline is not one thing that's going to fix it. There are many things that need to happen. And for us, taking ownership of finding those allies and finding those mentors, I think is one of the big priorities whenever we want to go into tech or anything really, but especially tech.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are some really, really fantastic answers. And, obviously it was always going to be a real challenge to answer such complicated questions in just an hour of time. Maybe we should do this again sometime, perhaps. But I think that there's been some really, really valuable conversations that have been had by all of our panelists today in this, as well as between some of our participants as well. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time, in fact, slightly over the end of our time, and we've not managed to make it to any of our participants' questions, and in fact had to skip a couple of the questions that I would have really liked to answer as well. But I think that the depth that we were able to go into the questions that we did address more than makes up for that. So I would like to really give a huge thanks to all of our panelists that have been on here tonight, Sarah McCullough, Joe Stewart-Rattray, Berys Amor, and Rani Burchmore. And just before we leave tonight, invite any of our panelists, if you have anything that you would like to share in terms of programs or initiatives that you think might be helpful to some of our participants, please let us know, because I think that the participants would really value that.
Do you mean now?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have been more clear.
Go for it, Berys.
Oh no, I'm going to go back to that networking. It's really important to build up your network. I found that going to events. If you're not in that kind of invitation circle, then someone around you that you work with or someone more senior will be. Ask if you can tag along or go along to those events, and they can be daunting at first, but you make some fantastic contacts through there, and as we said, with other people in other organizations. So I definitely encourage you to do that.
I think that's a really good idea. It is a really good idea. The only other thing I would say too, very quickly, because I actually have to go and start doing stuff. I would just say that my grandmother used to always say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you really want someone, and I saw it in the chat, if you really want someone to be your mentor, just ask. And if it was asking about female mentors, just ask her, what is the worst thing that she can say to you? No. And it might be because she's just too darn busy. So that's all right. She couldn't do it, but there's bound to be somebody else that you would like. Ask them. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jo. I was just going to follow up, if it's all right, Jack. A very practical one from me. A lot of organisations, like the one that I'm proud to work for, Essential Energy, have great graduate programs which focus on diversity and inclusion. And I think it was Ben's comment in the chat, where do you get that talent pipeline? Programs like IT Masters that allow you to do this, extracurricular or short study or longer study in your own time are also great for that. And then post your studies, you might look at opportunities at organisations like ours that have early talent pipelines, where you get to join an organisation where you have a mentor, you rotate around different divisions, and you're also embedded in a place that's caring about your career and development. So just a call out on those early talent pathways that exist, and a lot of them do focus on diversity and inclusion. So to the point earlier in the chat, where someone's perhaps working somewhere they don't feel it's okay to be your authentic self, find an organisation that really fits with you and you share their values. And yeah, so thanks, Jo. And over to you, Rani.
I was just going to share that every company that I have worked in, Dow, Thomson, Prometric, AWS, Microsoft, they all run programs very specifically for women. In AWS, we have She Codes, Aspire for Her. These are all programs that look at entry-level talent. So you can come to these programs with absolutely no knowledge of IT. And whether it's through 2 months or 3 months, you can get a basic foundational knowledge of Python, Linux. So it is actually, this content is all built with the assumption that the person who's coming have some acumen about them, but no IT knowledge. So seek those programs out. And if anyone wants any specific links to that, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be able to give you some of those links that have these company programs that you can go and participate and find out if it floats your boat.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. And just to that point, actually, if you are interested in gaining some additional skills and things like that, please do feel free to check out the IT Masters website. We offer a whole range of short courses that are free, including short courses and a full-length course that is focused on transitioning into the IT space as well. So if that particularly, I can see in the chat that someone said that they're looking for things like that. itmasters.edu.au. Hopefully we can help out. And I would also like to just shout out IT Masters as a tech education company with a woman CEO and a predominantly female workforce as well. It is really fantastic to work in, especially as somebody who's currently transitioning into a career in a particularly male-dominated space outside of the tech sector. It's really refreshing to get to come back to IT Masters. So those tech companies do exist out there. And hopefully we'll see more and more of them, particularly if we have women in leadership and management roles like our wonderful panelists that we've had this evening. So that sounds like it will just about do us for the night. We've got to go, but thank you very, very much once again to Sarah, Jo, Berys, and Rani. Thank you, everybody. This will be available recorded on YouTube as well. And again, based on where you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Thanks very much, everyone.
Well,
Okay, thanks. Bye.